Following the passing of the Pope yesterday, he has been described by a lot of people as one of the loudest voices for the environment. But what exactly did he do to earn this description? That's what I'll be examining in the next few minutes, and I hope you would stick around because he did some very good things as far as the environment is concerned. Beyond his influence on the over 1.4 billion Catholics across the world, the Pope was always drawing attention to the impact of these environmental problems on the poorest and the most vulnerable people in society. And the fact that someone would dedicate his entire life to causes beyond themselves in itself is impressive. But to then take that and use it for some of the things he has done over the years, I think is what acknowledgement. And that's what I intend to do here. Now, some would argue that one of his most notable impacts on the struggle for the environment is the pastoral letter he wrote in 2015. And in that letter, he did not just draw attention to the problems and the damages on the environment. He pointed at scientific evidence to support the human cause of global warming. Now, that's very significant because we now live in an age where some leaders would turn a blind eye at the clear scientific evidence in pursuit of, should I say, popular opinion or ignorant opinion. But I don't want to get into trouble too early. So let's move on from there. And something else he did in that particular letter was to place his finger, in my opinion, on one of the most important problems we face as a species. And it's this lifestyle in most developed societies where people live as if the supplies or the resources of the earth are in infinite supply. That's a lie. There are people who buy clothes every weekend. People live their lives as if there's just this constant supply that would never run out. That is not true. Water, one of the things which people look at as one of the most abundant resources, when it comes down to the drinkable, usable portion of water, it is a scarce resource. And I've done a video about that, so I've linked that up there. So the resources are not in infinite supply, that he pointed at. And in his words, he said, we are currently squeezing the planet beyond every limit. But also very important is the timing of this publication because it was released exactly 6 months before COP21, that's the United Nations Conference on Climate Change. Again, I've done a video on that. I've linked it on if you want to know more about the COP and the Conference on Climate Change. That was published 6 months before, and many have argued that it must have played a significant role in that historic Paris Agreement being reached. Not just the publication, the Vatican was actively involved in that negotiation. Also, before COP28 in 2023, the Pope also released an update to the Laudato Si, and this I think was Laudato Deum. Again, I do not speak Italian, so please forgive if I've gotten that wrong. And in that update, he said, with the passage of time, I have realized that our response have not been adequate. While the world in which we live in is collapsing and maybe nearing breaking point. He intended to make history by being the first pope to attend that climate conference on climate change, but for health reasons, he couldn't make it, although his speech was read there. In 2019, the Pope was bold enough to side or to support ecocide, which is the destruction of the environment by humans. He supported the bid and the struggle to class it or to place it in the same category as genocide and ethnic cleansing. In fact, in that statement, he described ecocide as a sin. Up until his death, he was active as far as environmental issues are concerned. About this time last year, I think it was in May 2024, he organized a Catholic Church own conference on climate resilience, a 3 days conference that attracted people from all over the world. Mayors of over 16 countries across the 16 cities, across the world were present. Among them where the mayors of Paris and the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, who obviously is not a Catholic. Now, Sadiq Khan in that meeting is very significant because the role, I mean, love him or loathe him, the impact Sadiq's actions, unpopular actions on air pollution in London has, again, we follow the scientific evidence. We go where the science leads us. So a recent research has shown that the air quality in London has improved significantly following those actions that the mayor had taken. And now you recall, also, I think I talked about that in a video previously, that at least the death of one child has been previously linked to air pollution in London. And I know that might not mean much to you, but I invite you to just picture yourself or put yourself in the position of the mother or the parent of that child, and you would understand the pain. So it could have been anybody's child, it could have been my child, it could have been your child. And so the actions the mayor had taken in London is having significant impact, and its influences like that over the years, where he's had meetings with political leaders, business leaders, and have tried to influence their actions and their decision on the environmental issues. And in those opportunities with leaders, he would often ask a question: whether these leaders, whether we, whether us, whether everyone is working for a culture of change or for a culture of death. And that's a very important question. That post, that social media post you're about to make, that work, that thing you're about to do, is that working for a culture of change or working for a culture of death? Let those words sink in, because I think they're important. And so, as we celebrate a life lived beyond self, I would like these words to be etched constantly on our minds. Is what you're about to do working for a culture of change or working for a culture of death? May his gentle soul rest in peace, and may these words of his continue to influence our actions. Thank you.